The following video interview is part of the USMC Vietnam Tankers History Project and were recorded in the VTA reunion in Washington, D.C. on October 30th, 2015. Would you please state your name, your unit, and the years in Vietnam?
Daniel Wokaty. My unit, the first time I went to Vietnam was Bravo Company, 3rd Tanks. And the second time I went to Vietnam, it was Alpha Company, 1st Tanks.
And what were those two deployments as far as the years?
The first one was in 60, I went over there in May of 65. I flew in on an advanced party because we relieved a platoon that was on the Da Nang airstrip and provided security for the airport there, or the airstrip. And from there we stayed there till the rest of the 3rd Tank Battalion headquarters came over. Once the 3rd Tank Battalion headquarters came over, they decided to put us back because we went over, we were Bravo Company, 1st Platoon of 3rd Tanks, and we replaced Alpha Company, 1st Platoon of 3rd Tanks. We took their place on the Da Nang airstrip as security for the Da Nang airstrip. Anyway, when the battalion, 3rd Tank Battalion tanks came over, they decided to put us, because we belonged to Bravo Company, 3rd Tanks, they decided to put us back with our company, which was Bravo Company, 3rd Tanks, and they moved out to Marble Mountain. And we moved with the Bravo Company 3rd Tanks out to Bravo Company, which was out by Marble Mountain there. And then we started operating with the infantry. It was 2-9, and we were operating down in the Phong Ho area. We operated all the way down to Hoi An, where the Rock Marines were at. In the Phong Ho area, they had a leper colony out there in that Phong Ho area, and they had a bunch of leopards out there. I'm sure that everybody knows what leopards are, you know. And anyway, we operated in that area. We'd make a sweep down through that area with the infantry, pick up people. They'd take them back, interrogate them, turn them loose. Well, farmers, they went right back to their farm. You know, and that was back in that same area, in that Phong Ho area there. So anyway, it seemed like the same thing over and over again, you know.
Now, were these farmers VC? Probably?
They probably were, yeah.
And planting mines and snipers?
And we came back to the battalion headquarters, which is up above Four Corners there. And anyway, they had the Viet Cong were there past the Four Corners, and that's where the 1st Tank Battalion headquarters was at. And anyway, we were down there and we killed these people, and I told the Sergeant Major, I said, "We killed your barber down there." "No, you didn't kill our barber." I said, "Yeah, he had on one of those VC costumes, and anyway, he was running with those VC, and we killed him down there, killed a bunch of them down there."
There was an ambush?
Yeah.
So, is that 1965 still? Had you talked to your second deployment yet?
I went back in December of 67. I left in 66. And in 67, I was back in Vietnam for my second deployment.
So your first deployment in 65, May of 65, what was your rank?
I was a sergeant.
E5?
Yeah.
And so you were a section leader?
Heavy section leader, yeah.
Okay. And were you still in E5 when you went back to the world?
Yeah. Well, I didn't come back to the world. I had orders to Marine Barracks, Yokosuka.
So you went to Japan after your Vietnam deployment?
Yeah.
And your Marine Barracks, what is that?
They had a Marine Barracks there at that time.
Which is a
embassy? Provides security for the base and provides security like the Provost Marshal come under the MP control, giving driver's license there, and taking care of the shore patrol out in town every time the fleet came in. And
Had a busy time when the fleet came in.
yeah, whenever the fleet came in.
So was that an MP?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you married at that time?
No, I was single at
Okay,
that
so,
time.
so you didn't have to get back to the world.
No. And every time the fleet come in, the provost marshal there was Major Blair. And anyway, he was over the shore patrol out there in town too. He said, "Well," I said, "I'm gonna take you to town." Said, "You're gonna be working for shore patrol." So, shore patrol in Yokosuka was 24 on whenever the fleet came in, and stay on till they left, or 24 on and 48 off, which was good duty there too. And
So you were under the direction of the squids.
well, it was under Major Blair, which was a Marine Corps major, but he was under the provost marshal on the base. Plus, he was underneath the out in town there at the shore patrol headquarters too.
So after your duty at Yokosuka, where did you go?
I came back to Pendleton and
First Tanks?
Yeah, I came back to First Tanks there, and I think I wound up in Dog Company. They had the 120s. I didn't stay there very long. I had orders to go back to Vietnam already. I said, "Gosh, that's kind of a rushed trip, you know." Anyway, I went back in December of '67. Yeah.
And what rank were you then?
And I was a staff sergeant already.
E6.
So anyway, they took us out. They had a tank platoon down at the Tui Long Bridge, which was on Route 10, I think it was, because it went to Hill 37, went to 47, and out to 56.
And what are those numbers? What do those numbers mean?
Those were the Hill numbers, where the different battalions were at. And anyway, the Tui Long Bridge was the only bridge that linked to these battalions out there, because they had to come in to get their ammunition, they had to come in to get their water, they had to come in to get all their supplies, and they went there and they said, "You can't let that bridge be blowed up, because if they blow that bridge up," and we furnished them, man, we had lights out there with a generator at night. We had
floodlights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Had 5 tanks out there, and when we got there, they took us out because they don't have a platoon sergeant for this platoon, which was the 1st Platoon A Company, 1st Tanks. And they had one down at the Cowdoe Bridge. Anyway, it took us out there, and there was a lieutenant by the name of Montgomery that was a platoon leader, no platoon sergeant. After I'd been out there for almost a month, I said, what's going on out there? There's something going on out there. Each tank crew had their own whore out there. It was like a movie, yeah. And what they'd do is, during the daytime, they'd go out and they'd get the whiskey and beer and whatever they wanted, and they'd bring it back in. At night, they had bunkers by each one of the tanks. Well, what they'd do is they'd take and put them old girls in the darn bunkers, and they'd hide them out. And I asked this Lieutenant Montgomery, I said, "You know that shit's going on here?" He said, "Well, they've had hard," and said, "I'm letting them relax here." I said, they ain't gonna relax that away. They're gonna get out of here. So what I did, I gathered up all them girls, and I gathered up all their liquor and everything, and I put them outside the fence, and they were telling me, said, "The VC is gonna kill us." I said, "Well, you got 2 ways to go. Either they're gonna kill you, or either I'm gonna kill you." You know. Anyway, they were all pissed off and mad because
of the tankers.
Yeah, these were tankers out there. Now, there were some good tankers there, but there were some that I could have swore they were using goddamn dope, you know, smoking goddamn marijuana. Because whenever you go on an operation, you'd set like a blocking force, and here come the mama sons out. They knew as much about what was going on, or knew more than we did, you know, because they'd come out of the damn bushes. They'd have their pot, and they'd have the beer and whiskey and whatever, you know. And he got that. Anyway, that's the way it went there. And anyway, we furnished.
No mutiny, no.
No.
Okay, you had pretty strict control.
Yeah, and we had one of those control towers that stood up there. That's probably about, gosh, I guess that control tower. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, observation tower.
Yeah, observation tower. Cause you could be up in that observation tower, and it had a plotting board there.
Plot board?
A plotting board.
Okay. For
Yeah.
fire direction control.
Yeah. And they'd fire those rockets from the sand flat, and the sand flats had come right over us, going to the Da Nang airstrip. And I had put two tankers up there, and any goddamn way they were coming down the damn ladder from the damn tower, and the tower's about 60 feet in the air or higher. And I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "Hell, them damn rockets are coming this way. They're gonna hit this damn tower. So they ain't gonna hit you. They're going to the Da Nang airstrip, so they're gonna pass over high enough." I said, "You get back up there," you know. Well, they went back up there, you know.
Now, so did they call artillery into the?
Yeah.
That was their job up there in the tower.
Their job was to plot it where the rockets were taking off from in the sand flats coming to the Da Nang airstrip. And anyway, sometimes they'd return fire back in that area. Sometimes they wouldn't, you know. So we didn't know, because what we'd do is just call it in, and that was out of our hands.
You didn't use the tanks to fire at them?
No.
It was just artillery?
Yeah. And artillery would fire. And anyway.
That's funny about the rockets.
Yeah. Anyway, you could be up there and you could see the big flash when the rockets would take off, you know. And you knew it was coming to the Nang airstrip, because they'd rocket that darn thing every 2 or 3 nights. And then during the Tet Offensive
in '68.
In '68, yeah, was when we had a problem with the I guess they were ARVN Popular Forces, came up to our goddamn CP way we were set up there.
And just a second, ARVNs?
Yeah.
For the viewers, what's an ARVN?
ARVN is it's like a National Guard, you know, with the
Vietnamese Army?
Vietnamese, yeah.
Okay.
They told us there's a lot of VC and NVA down here in this village, you know, and they said we would like to have a tank to go down there with us. Well, we couldn't just send it down there. We had to get permission to the company commander and through the battalion. So anyway, then they finally said, okay, yeah, said send 2 tanks down there. So we sent the heavy section down there, a section leader plus one other tank. Well, one of the tanks got hit with a RPG. Well, they come flying back up there, and anyway, I'd call for a maintenance man to come out to check the tank to find out what it take to get it back in operation again. None of the crew was hurt on that.
So you said it was hit with an RPG. What happened? What did it go in the engine compartment?
No, it hit in the track and the backside of the tank.
Did it blow the sprocket off?
No, it just really tore it up. And anyway, the tank got back up there. So they decided to send another tank out there. So I said, well, I'll take the damn tank down there. So I'll go down there. So when I went down there, I cut kind of across the field, and already a lot of things were transpiring. The division, or the battalion reactionary team, had came, and they were already down there in the area where all this firing was going on. A lot of shooting, a lot of bullets flying, and you could hear a lot of explosions down there. And anyway, my heavy section leader that had a tank, and he was there, he said that they had received the word came from some major that the tanks would do no firing there. They would do no shooting there. The tanks would just be there. Well, anyway, when I got down there, this corpsman, I cut across the rice paddy, and the corpsman come over there and said, we got a lot of dead and wounded over there. I said, well, I ain't worried about the dead. There's nothing we can do for them, but you load all the wounded up on my tank and I'll get them out of here.
And what were you going to do, take them to medevac?
Well, yeah, I was going to take them back where they could be medevac. So I took them back to the Tory Long Bridge where our CP was set up there. And One of them was Captain McPherson. And,
Was one of the wounded?
Yeah, he was one of the wounded, and he was one of the platoon leaders for the reactionary platoons. And I seen him later, and he told me, he said, if you hadn't hauled me out of there that day, I'd have died there. Anyway, I hauled him and a bunch of others out of there that night, and then I went back down there to get the rest of them. And anyway, it seemed like after dark, then everything just stopped there. Well, they got their reactionary platoons back. They loaded them up, and they wanted to know about the people that were dead out there. Well, we had 9 Marines that were dead, and one of them was the one that they're talking about. There was a sergeant or something. Severance. Yeah, he was one of them. Anyway, they said, well, we can't come get him tonight. We'll get him at first light in the morning. And anyway, then they wanted them identified. They wanted to know what their names were. I said, gosh, you'd think that the platoon leader, platoon sergeant, somebody like that would know who they were, you know. And anyway, they said, we want you to identify them, you know, who these people were. Yeah, so anyway, I told the platoon leader, and he was kind of wishy-washy. I said, that's your job to go over there and identify those people and find out who they are, you know, what their names are and all that. And anyway, he said, I can't do that. I said, why? Why not? You know, I said, they're Marines, but they're just dead Marines, you know. And anyway, he said, well, will you go with me? So I went over there and we identified all of them that were laid out there. And anyway, called their names back into battalion. Then anyway, once we got their names back to battalion, there was a lot of explosion. This is during the Tet Offensive. There's a lot of stuff going on during the Tet Offensive. Everywhere's all over Vietnam, and I was surprised that we didn't get hit out there that night too.
Now the incident where the headquarters reactionary platoon was their squad was killed, those fellows were killed. Was that near the Tui Long Bridge?
No, it was down in a village there that was actually, I guess, southeast of the Tui Long Bridge.
So do you think the NVA or the VC were trying to take over the village?
Well, they taking over the village. They might have been coming to get us up there where we were set up there at the Tui Long Bridge. Yeah, at the bridge.
I'd heard that was what the objective was,
Yeah.
that they were coming to, and part of the Tet Offensive, of course, is to try to destroy as much as they can.
Yeah. But anyway, it stopped, and we never did get hit that night or anything, you know. And anyway, the next morning here they come with a 6x to pick up those dead Marines, you know, that laid out there all night. And anyway, after that, then they pulled us back to battalion. And
At 55?
no, they pulled us back to Battalion CP, which is up on the hill there. It's set up over, it was above Four Corners is where it was at, the Battalion CP was. And they said, what we're going to do here is we're going to send Captain Casey is going to take 2 platoons. He's going to Way City. Anyway, he said, you're going to be the reactionary platoon. And said, we're going to give you the two headquarters tanks from A Company first tanks. We're going to give you the 2 battalion headquarters tanks. So you're going to have a total of 9 tanks. Anyway, we were what they call the division reactionary platoon, and wherever it was hot or wherever they need some tanks, well, then they would send us out and we'd go out. And anyway, then they made up a bastard outfit to go out into the Oshaw Valley to resupply a special forces camp that was out there. And anyway, we went down this road there past Hill 45, and it was not really a road, it was a trail. And any goddamn way, it looked like nothing had been down that trail to me since the French had been there, because you seen the old vehicles on the side where they'd hit mines and stuff, you know.
French vehicles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just left that stuff there. And we got to Hill 52. there was a Special Forces guy that was there on Hill 52 with some of those Chinese nuns. And anyway, they mortared us all night. You could hear the mortar tubing, thump, thump, thump. You know what was coming next. Was the mortars. And these people, I guess, whatever the chief said, they were so devoted. If a mortar didn't explode, he'd tell them they'd go get that mortar, and they'd take it. They had a big pit over there that they were throwing them unexploded mortars into.
And why do you think they were going to get them? Is that to keep the people from making bombs out of them?
I guess, or either keep them from going off later, somebody hitting them and they go off later.
Run over them with a car or truck or something.
Yeah, yeah. And this guy from Special Forces was out there, and anyway, I seen him later there in Waco. He was working. He went
in Texas.
Yeah. He was went to hydraulic school, and he was working with lifts, high lifts, and such as that, and hydraulics. And he said that day that you got off of that tank and come up there, he said, hell, you look so damn good. I wanted to kiss you, Said, because I knew that we were dead meat out there. Said, because we were out of ammunition, we were out of food, was out of every damn thing,
So did they load up all the supplies on your tanks and you brought it out, or did you support some trucks going out?
No, there was trucks with us.
Okay.
And
so it was a convoy.
Yeah. It was like what I said, a bastard outfit, because they took a company from this battalion, a company from that battalion, and they took 5 tanks, which is part of our reactionary thing. And then they had trucks that were loaded with ammunition, and those trucks were up there on that hill 52 with us, loaded with goddamn ammunition and sea rations, and hell, the damn mortars. Water, damn mortars are falling there all night, And the next morning, they wanted to make a push to go out there, and you could look out in the valley there, and you could see all these planes and helicopters that belonged to the Army that'd been blowed out of the air, or they were crash landed or whatever up there,
This is the Ashaw Valley?
Yeah.
That was really hairy part of the world, wasn't it?
And they had a Special Forces camp out there, and
they were under siege.
Yeah, gotcha. And they were running out of everything, and so somehow the Marine Corps was elected to resupply them, and we were the ones that resupplied them.
But he said he was going to kiss you on the lips.
Yeah. But anyway, he made it back to the States, and he was telling me, he said, that was really bad and hairy out there, But anyway, then...
Did you guys stay there?
Once we got the stuff out there, then we left and come back. Unloaded all the supplies out there. And then I got a piece of shrapnel in the shin bone. And they medevaced me because I couldn't wear my boot. I tied it around the boot on my left foot. I tied it around my neck because I figured one day I'd wear it again. My darn foot was turning black, and they said, "We got to get you out of here." But the dead Marines that were killed, every time they'd take a 36 helicopter, and it was in a big goddamn valley there. That's where we was at. After we got off of Hill 52, every time they'd try to take off with a helicopter with the bodies and stuff, they were shooting at them, and a couple of them had got shot down, went down and couldn't get out of the valley. Anyway, I got medevac from there, and I wound up going to Cameron Bay. And anyway, they were talking about cutting my leg off. I said, "You ain't cutting my damn leg off, Said, "Well, it won't heal," because they were shooting me in my rear end with about 100,000 units of penicillin and 50,000 units of strep, and it wouldn't heal. It was just like sap oozing out of a tree.
And how long was this period of time that they were giving you the shots and they were trying to get it healed?
It was about a week.
And this is in Da Nang? No, Cameron Bay.
Cameron Bay.
At the hospital.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, there was a Navy doctor coming there and said, "Well, we're going to take you down here. We're going to X-ray. We're going to see what it is." And he told me, he said, "Well, what you got is a piece of shrapnel in your shin bone." Anyway.
In the bone.
In the bone, yeah. And anyway, And the reason that they medevaced me is because I couldn't wear my boot. My foot had swole up and it was turned black. And anyway, the doctor said, he said, what you got is a piece of shrapnel or steel still in that bone that wasn't taken out.
And the body was reacting to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, once that's out, he says, I don't think you'll need no more shots, that it'll heal in about 3 days, 4 days. It was completely healed. And anyway, they discharged me from the hospital. It was
in Cameron Bay again.
Yeah. It was the Air Force hospital is what it was, but it had Army and Navy doctors there. And anyway, I said, well, how can I get back to Da Nang? He said, well, you look over there on the other side of the runway over there. Said, there's a thing over there. Just go over there and see them. They'll get you a hop back to Da Nang. And anyway, while I was there that day, I seen 130s and 707s taking off. That's how big the runway was. They were taking off like fighter planes, 2 at a time. And I've never seen nothing like that here in the States or anywhere else, because they put a lot of money in that place there. And I asked this guy, I said, I need to go back to Da Nang. And he said, well, we got that Goonie bird that's going to Da Nang there. And I went out there and looked up inside there, and these guys were dressed in civilian clothes, you know. I asked him, I said, y'all got any parachutes on this thing? He said, hell no. And I figured they were probably Air America. They were probably CIA, you know.
Now you said Goonie birds. That C-47?
Yeah.
Two engine plane?
Yeah, old plane.
Old World War II plane.
Yeah, it had all these Vietnamese in there, and they had their chickens and pigs and all that stuff in there, you know. And anyway, I said, well, I ain't flying on this damn thing. So I waited, and later on that day, I got a hop on a 130 going to Da Nang.
C-130?
Yeah, C-130.
And that get you to Da Nang?
Yeah, to Da Nang. And anyway, then I got back with the battalion there. And anyway, the old sergeant major said, well, you ain't got but a couple of months left, so I'm going to put you down there. I'm going to put you down there to take care of the club for the staff NCO. I said, well, I'd rather be out there in the impact area, you know. And he said, what are you talking about, impact area? He said, this is the impact area here too. You know. Anyway, that's where I went till I left there.
Club NCO.
Yeah.
And you're still staff sergeant?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I got orders to DI school at San Diego. And when I reported in there, this major that was the CO of DI school was my XO in Vietnam the first time in Bravo Company 3rd Tanks. He was going around paying the people out in the field and driving a tank, and he had his right foot underneath the seat, and he hit a mine. And where the escape hatch was, he lost the back part of his heel. So they put him out of the Marine Corps on a medical. But he came back in the Marine Corps, and he had all these certificates all over the wall from everybody. The Secretary of the Navy, the President, you know, the Commandant, and everybody, where he belonged to this 1,000 miles a month club. And anyway, he said, you come here. He said, I'm going to keep you here till the last day, and I'm going to drop you before graduation.
This is at San Diego?
Yeah, at MCRD.
Why is he going to drop you? What does that mean? What does it mean?
He's going to drop me from the DI school the day before graduation.
Because he didn't want you to be a DI? Or you didn't want to be a DI?
I didn't really care, because I was in the Marine Corps, you know.
Whatever they say.
Yeah, and anyway, I told him I wasn't no racehorse, because I seen all them certificates that he had, all them running certificates, you know. And I told him I wasn't no racehorse, you know. And anyway, he was laughing, and anyway, he said, oh, you'll enjoy it here. So I stayed there.
Stayed on the drill field?
Yeah.
How many platoons did you go through, or series?
I went through 6 there.
2 years?
Yeah. And then I left there and went to Pendleton. And then,
back to 5th Tanks? First
yeah,
Tanks?
5th Tanks.
5th Tanks.
Yeah. And
when was that?
Gosh, that was
67, 68?
59 is when I went to school. 60. Now, what am I saying? 69. 61, 62,
72.
72, I mean. Yeah.
So was that third tanks or first tanks back by then, or was it still fifth tanks?
No, it's still fifth tanks.
Okay.
And I went to...
72.
Yeah, I went to D Company.
The elephant tanks.
Yeah. And anyway...
Did you like doing with them? Did you like dealing with those M103s?
Oh, you had to understand them and you had to know them. You know, you had to know how they operate and everything, how they... everything, all the firing system and all that, everything worked about the same, you know. But you had to know, because instead of having 4 people to a tank, you know, you had 5. You had 2 loaders, a gunner, tank commander, and a driver, you know.
And the 2 loaders, why?
Because you had 2 different parts of you had the projectile and then you had the casing. One to load the projectile first, and the other to load the casing in behind that on the 120.
And did the 120s ever get deployed?
No, the only place they ever got.
Gitmo.
Huh?
Gitmo, right?
Yeah.
Guantanamo's the only place that I know.
As far as I know, that's the only place they went was to Gitmo, and then they went to 29 Palms to train up there, and that's the only place I know of. And
I remember going to Pendleton one time and on the firing range and watching the 90s fire, and then the 120s fired, and the difference was night and day. The 120s were so awesomely powerful.
Yeah, they were, yeah. And that's the only place where I know of that they ever fired live ammunition on the move at 29 Palms there, because we traveled all day there and never crossed our tracks. It's so big out there, you know. The area.
And how did they get the tanks to 29 Palms? Because they were at Las Flores, right?
Yeah.
In Camp Pendleton.
We went by rail, and then there later, when they were only moving the 48s up there, they took them by lowboy up there, and we used to have to unload when we went by rail at a place called Baghdad out there in the desert. And anyway, it's hot in July out there. It's probably about 115 degrees out there, you know.
It's like Vietnam.
Yeah, and they had a place there across the road there, during the old service station there, and we used to go over there and ask that guy, "Can we get some water over here?" He said, "No, the water's only for the people that buy gas, the paying customers." Said, "We ought to go over there and get 2 of them tanks and just come over here and flatten this place," you know.
Did you ever get water from them?
Never did. And it was 30 miles from where we unloaded the tanks. It was 30 miles into main side there at 29 Palms.
And how fast did the tanks travel?
About 30 miles an hour.
So it took an hour at least to get to the.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But
So when I went to 29 Palms doing operate, we had to stay in tents. Did you guys stay in tents, or you get barracks?
Yeah, we had to stay in tents, and they had big old scorpions out there. Did you ever see them big scorpions?
I never did.
You never did? The scorpions, with his front pinchers and his tail, was that long.
Big as your hand.
Yeah. And they had tortoises that lived in those washouts there. They were going to practice, you know, with some trucks were out there, and they got into one of these washouts. It come up a rain and flooded all them 6x that were in that washout, you know. It flooded them all, you know. They had wreckers there trying to pull them out. They used some tanks to pull some of them trucks out of there too, you know. So you never did want to go into one of those washouts at night. And it was at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was about 105 degrees out there. So and they said, whenever you sleep out here in these tents, we always took pallets and put them down and put our cots on top of those pallets, because those darn scorpions would crawl in with you in the cot, you know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So did you spend much time at 29 Palms, or did you guys end up really spend most of the time at Flores?
We spent most of the time there. I think the last time that we were out there, we spent 60 days out there training.
And during that time, what was your rank then?
Master Sergeant.
So you were gunny. When were you a gunny?
Gosh.
Because you were staff sergeant when you got to the drill field.
Yeah. And after I left the field, then I got promoted to gunny. And then,
So you were back at 5th Tanks, the gunny?
yeah. And then I got sent to Okinawa Marine Corps Base at Okinawa.
Okay, we missed this on the. Okay.
Yeah, and General Freiberg was the one that promoted me to Master Sergeant. And when I left Okinawa, I went to base Okinawa.
Uh-huh.
And then I came back to Pendleton. I was Master Sergeant.
And did you go back to 5th Tanks or 1st Tanks in Okinawa, or from Oki?
I went back to First Tanks.
1st Tanks, and they had Delta Company in 1st Tanks?
Yeah,
Okay.
they still had them there, yeah.
Okay, did they still have the 103s by the time you retired? Or they had gotten rid of them yet?
No, they still had them. They were talking about getting rid of them because they were getting the M60s.
They were just getting M60s?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But,
Okay, so did you have any experience with M60s?
yeah, I did with those too, yeah.
So they brought them in while you were still in active duty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like that tank better than the M48?
Oh,
Mets.
I don't know. They operated mostly about the same to me, you know. Everything seemed like it's almost the same, you know. There's some better features in the 60s, you know. And anyway, I don't know. I said 27 years in the Marine Corps, I had some good duty stations. I had some good duty, and I had some bad duty. And somebody asked me the other night there, said, what was the bad duty? I said, I don't want to talk about it. I forgot about that bad duty. You know? But the good duty, and whenever I was with the FMF, I was with tanks. And when I wasn't with the FMF, I usually wound up with military police or shore patrol, something like that.
Now, for the people that don't know what FMF is, what's the FMF?
FMF is Fleet Marine Force.
So that's the foreign service?
Yeah,
Overseas?
Military, you know, overseas, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was thinking there's so many good things that I remember, you know. It's just like when I was there in Okinawa, they used to send this was during peacetime. We weren't war. They'd send a platoon at a time to Motabu. Motabu. It was an old airstrip there in
Oki.
Yeah. And what they'd do, they'd take train with their tanks. And what they'd do, they'd race those tanks in that platoon to see which one had the fastest tank. And then the fastest tank, well, each one of the platoons went out there for training, you know, in the battalion. And anyway, then they'd have a field meet out there. The battalion commander would be there, the whole battalion would be out there. And they'd have a field meet out there, beer and games and every damn thing. Anyway, they'd take and race those tanks, and the battalion commanders was right there just with the rest of us, like it was all kids. And you're racing two goddamn tanks, 60 tons apiece on that airstrip, you know. And I said, I never thought about that till here in recent life, you know. If one of those damn tracks had broke on one of those tanks, it could kill a whole bunch of us, you know. But that was the thing, you know, yeah.
I've never heard that. That's great. That's terrific. That's a great story.
And we run all over Okinawa there. We even lived up there at Hanson up there before they ever built any barracks. We lived in darn Strongbacks out there. And a typhoon was coming. It's in Typhoon Path, Okinawa is.
Sure.
No barracks or any damn thing. Of course, the Air Force had barracks down at Kadena.
And these are like cement barracks, permanent. Yeah.
So what they'd have us do, you tear down all these Strongbacks, tents and everything, put them in 6x, put all your stuff in 6x and put all the 6x in the middle and park all the tanks around them. Well, all the staff and everybody would go to Kadena. They're down in the damn barracks probably drinking beer and everything, and here we are up there. We're in those tanks, you know, and with the wind blowing through there, you know.
Inside the tank?
Yeah, we're inside the damn tank, you know.
While the typhoon's happening.
Yeah, you hear them creaking, you know, from the torsion bars. And any goddamn way, 2 weeks later, we're going down through Ishikawa. Here's all these mama-sons and papa-sons is wearing our clothes, you know. they got our clothes because the typhoon come through there and blowed all that stuff away, you know. And we're out there collecting back up what we can use, you know. But anyway, I thought about that. That was some good duty, you know. But a lot of fun there. Like I say, we run all over Okinawa with tanks, but now you can't go nowhere on the island, you know.
In fact, they're getting off the island. Most, I think all the Marines are pretty much leaving the island. They're going to Guam and Australia, and they're going all around.
Yeah. And anyway, there was a lot of good things. I remember a lot of things don't want to remember.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank you very much. We're pretty much at that time.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't know. I guess when it come close to time to retire, I was married. I got married 3 years before I retired.
First time?
First time.
Wow.
Yeah, and they used to say, well, the big oak tree fell, you know. And Colonel Slager tried to get me to come to Fort Knox. That's where they would send the Marines to Fort Knox, you know.
For tank school.
Yeah, tank school. He said, it won't be answering, you'll be the senior enlisted man here. And said, you'll only answer to me and to the general down at Quantico, you know, in training and development. And anyway, I called, checked the monitor, see what was in store for me. He said, well, if you don't go to Fort Knox, you're going to back to Westpac. And I said, well, I ain't been back that long. I've been back about 3 years, you know. And anyway, I said, really don't want to go back there. And any darn way, talked to my wife, you know. And if I went to Fort Knox, it snows there, it's cold there, you know. I said, I probably had a divorce on my hands. But anyway, the guy that was the S1 division, 1st Marine Division, he had been my platoon leader, my company commander, battalion commander, and he was at G1. And I told him I wanted to retire. He said, well, if you walk your package up here, tell me I'll send it out the same day. Anyway, I think it was about a week I had an answer. I could retire when I was ready, you know, and give me a date, you know. And then I run into a guy that was in my platoon in tanks that was on the drill field there in San Diego. He said, I seen your name on the list for E9. I said, ain't me. It must be somebody else. He said, I'm telling you, it's you. You're on the damn list for E9. And I said, well, they'll have to give that to somebody else because I'm retired already. And anyway, I said, well, probably the stuff didn't catch up with the headquarters Marine Corps, you know, and it wound up. But if I'd stayed, I'd had to sign my orders to go to Fort Knox. That'd been 2 years. I'd got promoted. I'd had to sign my orders again for 2 more years, and I'd probably have to go back to Westpac again, probably. And anyway, I'd probably wound up with a guy dang about 32 or 33 years in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And anyway, I figure I made out. Yeah, I figure I made out because I got out, went to work, and got into the Teamsters as a truck driver. I was able to retire a second time.
And you kept your wife.
And I kept my wife. Yeah.
There you go. All right, great, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.